So I figure before we dive into the issues Didymo's bringing us, maybe we talk a little bit about what it is every week we have folks in the shop that they say, what is that? I'm not familiar with that. So I wonder if you guys would touch on that before, we really talk about specific river environments that we have up here being affected by it.
Sure.
Well, I guess everybody's looking at me. So.
Yes.
Come on, scientist.
Right. All right. So Didymo basically it's a diatom, right? Which is a type of algae. Most algae that you probably would be familiar with would be, like blue-green algae, green algae, stuff like that. They typically tend to bloom or kind of grow out of control when you have, high phosphorus levels. So the issue with Didymo is it's quite the opposite, right? So this stuff is single cell. It's kind of got like this little case around it and a little spindle of, I'm not sure exactly what the actual thread is made out of that they attach and adhere to the substrates to, but they basically like low phosphorus, like extremely low. And so they will actually proliferate in that situation, which is the opposite of what we have with most algae, right? So you get kind of this misconception, well, you got Didymo in the river, it just means water quality is terrible, right? Well, it's not necessarily a water quality issue. It's probably the opposite. The water is probably too good, right? It's too clean from a nutrient standpoint. It's nutrient deficient. So, that's probably one of the issues we'll bring up today is just discussing kind of like, what can we do to mitigate some of the problems that we're seeing with this? And, basically the river's out of balance. So how do we bring it back to balance? So it's a fine line with phosphorus because if you look at it, you get levels over 10 micrograms, which isn't very much. You start having problems with macroinvertebrate communities, fish, algal blooms. But if you get too far the other way, which probably where we're at now, you start having issues like this. Well, you're still getting some of the same problems down the road with the macroinvertebrate community from a different perspective, meaning it's being smothered out versus not having, having too many nutrients, anoxic conditions, stuff like that would normally fall in line with the higher phosphorus levels in the water column. But not to get too lost in the details, it's a completely different issue from what you would normally see in our aquatic environments, right? So my instincts tell me we've been dealing with this for a while. I don't think it just showed up overnight. I think it's been something that's gone unnoticed for a while. And like you said, there's things that started to happen with the fishing, with the insects, that I really couldn't put my finger on. Mm-hmm. We can talk about this in more detail later, but two of the primary things that I've seen probably changed the most on the upper Manistee in the last few years, last decade, let's say, is habitat decline, especially loss of deep water habitat. Mm-hmm. And then, what was going on with our bugs?
Right.
Like, something happened in 2014. To me, that's far back as I can go, and I can say that year something changed in our area, right? I don't know what it was, but something changed at that point moving forward. So everything I started to notice with the river, especially with the insects and the fishing, started, in my mind, sometime in 2017.
Sure.
Maybe earlier, but I can think back to 2017. Fishing was phenomenal back then, but we started seeing changes, right? Where were the ISOs going? That was
where
the
were
most
the brown drakes?
Right. That was the most prolific hatch that we had, was Isonychia, yet it was starting to go into decline. And it really isn't making any sense.
Well, we had the New Zealand mud snail at the time, too.
Yeah, but that's nowhere near the issue that we're seeing today with Didymo.
Right, absolutely.
Didymo's a whole nother beast. I mean, that stuff essentially went 40 miles in one event. Think about that. CCC Bridge, probably all the way to the pond.
It was almost like a line at CCC.
I can confirm it went to 131. I found it in every section I fished from, essentially CCC to 131 last year. And in significant amount. It's not just like, a little bit here, a little bit there. It was everywhere.
It's very difficult to miss. There's that much.
It's funny you say that because people were missing it early on.
Yeah.
Can you tell us where you're seeing it? Because we can't find it. What do you mean you can't find it?
It looks like toilet paper coming down the river.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we laugh at that, but that's actually a really good description. It looks like someone just offloaded a truck of teepee into the river, and it snags on the branches, it drags, it looks like just wet rags covering the bottom of the river and attached to sticks, and anything it can attach to, it will attach to.
Yeah, and I had people kind of give me like little inputs on what to expect, and Johnny was like, you won't miss it. I'm like, okay. He's like, no, you're not going to miss it. Like, it's everywhere. And so we went up and started looking around, and he was right. It was everywhere. And it was, at that point, that's kind of like when I kind of lost it. Like, my mind just went, what the hell?
Yeah.
And this is in May.
This is in May,
Right.
yeah. Yep. And I saw the river in high water prior to that in April on a streamer trip, but you really couldn't get, like, the full emphasis of what I was seeing. I could see the debris floating in the river, which was something else to behold, but you really couldn't see the bottom, you know what I mean, because the water was still turbid from a recent
Still
rain.
runoff or
Yeah.
Right.
rain. Yeah.
But once it started to clear in May, then it became obvious what we were dealing with, and it was it was like I couldn't even visualize that before I saw it. It was like, no way. Wow.
Yeah.
It's impressive but depressing all in the same point.